just want to welcome everyone. You know, I was going to, and there was supposed to be this surprise today a little bit, and then I was going to tell Dwayne right about this point of don't leave the platform because you're going to start off the sermon with me, and he wasn't going to know any of this. And then somebody might have leaked a little bit of information off my production gauge. Still love you, brother. Okay. But we're talking about being restored, okay? And so part of this is looking like, maybe this slide will advance. Why do these things not love me? Can you go to the next slide? There we go. So to be restored, something needs to be messed up or broken, okay? Let's go to the next slide. So what is restoration? Okay, for me, for my career as a physical therapist, restoration was about fixing people, body parts, stuff like that. I have some of my mental health friends that are here that it's more about fixing other aspects of their life. From the pastoral standpoint, maybe helping fix in spiritual. Dwayne, how about you? What does restoration mean?
Well, when you work in construction, restoration is a house. Not putting lipstick on a pig or anything like that, but it is make better.
Make it better.
New.
Okay. So do things have to be messed up in order to restore it?
So much.
Have you ever messed up? This was going to be the surprise part. Okay, just so you.
Yes, I have. And you will all see.
So Dwayne showed me this video clip on his phone.
Big
and
mistake.
I said, Dwayne, can you send that to me? And he said, no. So I got it from somebody else. So let's go ahead and roll with this little video. It's better with sound if you got it. If you don't, no worries.
You don't have the other angle, right?
What's
Or
that?
do
No, I just,
Okay, thank God.
I clipped this one, and I waited to stop it after you stood up so we knew you were safe. Okay.
No, that me standing up here
Isn't proof
is
enough.
proof enough, yes.
Yeah, that wasn't really
That was
proof.
me.
That was Dwayne. So part of what we're going to be talking about today is really, the sermon today is really about you and me, our mess-ups, and how we process them. And so, yeah, Dwayne, you can go ahead and sit down, and I'll finish. I know I'll probably get payback for this later.
I will say this, though. I love this man to death, but he did not have my permission. So with that, because I worked with him for the last 2 years, physical therapy, every single day. Dan, pop my back. Dan, do this. Dan, do that. I haven't worked with him for the last 2 months, so I don't get treatment anymore. And then, of course, with that, quad did that to me. I was very tired that night. It was probably midnight when I was doing it. But then, Killian, he got a quad, and he wanted to go for a ride. And I'm like, buddy, in the last 2 weeks, I was in pain. And where was Dan? Not in this country. And so my son's like, Dad, can you go ride with me? And it had been 2 weeks. And I'm like, buddy, sure, why not? So I'm cleaning stuff up. I get on my other quad that I have. And I go to this one spot on our property. It's a little jump, like I just started, not even 20 seconds in. And I felt a big pop. It hurt so bad. But that night was the best sleep I had in the last 2 weeks. So I didn't need this man.
We renamed the quad Dan.
We renamed it Dan. But with that, going along with restoration, even the things that may break us can also restore us. So you're welcome.
Oh, good segue. We're going to get into that full circle thing. We're coming up. So we look at this. We're really going to be talking about two different disciples today that kind of messed up. Okay? And, every one of us has moments we'd love to erase, right? The words we wish we'd never spoken, the decisions we wish we'd never made, the relationships we damaged, the sin we promised God that we'd never commit again. Every person has failed. The question isn't, will I fail? The question is, what will I do after? Because failure, as we'll talk about, doesn't have to be fatal. And that's something we're going to look at. So by looking at that, we're going to talk about two different disciples today, okay? With the huge difference in how they handle their large mistakes, okay? And that's really looking at Judas and Peter. And they both messed up, and Peter's looked at as a hero, and Judas kind of has a bad rap, okay? So when we look at this, both of these guys loved Jesus. Both of them failed Jesus. One became the greatest missionary preacher of the New Testament and Pentecost. The other died alone. So what makes the difference? Judas, he wasn't just this guy at the end of his ministry. Judas, he was one of the guys. He wasn't an outsider. He preached. He healed. He cast out demons. He walked with Jesus for 3.5 years. Yet, for silver, he betrayed Christ. Afterwards, Matthew says he was filled with remorse. Notice something important here. He felt guilty. But his guilt did not lead him back to Jesus. He returned the money. He confessed his sins. He returned to the priest. Okay? Let's look at, if you guys can grab the Bible you brought with you, or there's a Bible there in front of you. It's on page 1517. If we can look at this, it says, I cheated. I put a little piece of paper in mine. So have you guys all caught up with me? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's there on the bottom of page 1517, right at the very bottom. In chapter 27, it says, when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse, and he returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priest and to the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. But he never confessed to Christ. He confessed to the priest. How well did that work out? Okay? Confessing to a priest just isn't going to cut it. Remorse without Jesus leads to despair. So he hung himself. There's a question here that I want you to think about. Did Judas mess up so bad that if he had come back to Jesus for forgiveness, would it have been available for him? Why do you feel that sometimes we are not worthy of forgiveness, or that it's not available to us? Why do we feel that way? I remember when my brother Mark had been away from church for a long time, and he and I had started talking, and we're kind of engaging with church, and he's kind of looking into it and just saying, man, I look at this. And then one day, it was the middle of the week, I get this call from him, and he said, and he had been doing some work on our security system, so he had a code to kind of get in. He had kind of been working on some things here. He goes, hey, can I meet with you? And I said, sure. And he goes, well, and I said, where? And he goes, well, let's meet at the church. So it was the middle of the week. I come in, I'm looking for him, and I find him sitting right down here in this front pew, okay? We're the only ones here. And he's just like, and he's struggling. I will never forget what he said to me. He said, I understand forgiveness. I understand that he can forgive anyone. I just don't think he can forgive me. Have you ever felt that way? Why do those feelings conjure up on us? You know, I think so many times the most powerful weapon that Satan has to use against us is ourselves. You know, it's over and over. We just want to beat ourselves up over and over. And where Peter's failure was different. He denied Jesus not once, but he denied him 3 times. He wasn't being tortured when he was denying him. He was standing around a charcoal campfire. He even swore that he never knew Jesus. You know, Luke records something heartbreaking here. It talks about how the rooster crowed, Jesus turned and looked at Peter. Okay, imagine you just denied him 3 times after you promised him you'd stand by him no matter what, and Jesus turns and looks at you. Not with anger, not with condemnation. What did that look like? Was it love? Was it hurt? You know, Peter runs away weeping. And, you know, so we think about that. Both men failed. Both men were broken. Both regretted what they had done. One ran from Jesus, and the other eventually ran to him. So Peter, who was told he was going to be the rock, Peter remembers another rock. He had spent the previous evening with Jesus in Gethsemane, with Jesus' heart breaking, and Peter remembers that rock in Gethsemane. He goes back there. This is where Peter runs to. He runs to the place where Jesus had prayed, the place where Peter had slept when he wasn't supposed to, the place where Peter promised too much and prayed too little. Imagine you're running back to the Garden of Gethsemane, every rock reminding him of his failure, every olive tree in the garden reminding him of broken promises. He falls on the rock, he's crushed, he's broken, he's ashamed. You know, sometimes when bad junk happens, sometimes God has to bring us back to the place we failed. Not to shame us, but to heal us. God never rejects brokenness. And so Peter there is forgiven. But does he feel restored? The power guilt has over us after we've messed up. You know, how strong that is, and how many times have we messed up, we got forgiven, but we haven't allowed ourselves to become restored. And this is kind of where it starts off. John chapter 21 starts off, so this is after the resurrection, starts off with Peter saying, I'm going fishing. Okay? Now, God works in amazing ways, because I saw Andy walk in for children's story today with his fishing pole. And I said, are you talking about fishing? And he goes, yes. I go, do you know what I was talking about? No. See, isn't that just amazing? So he says, I'm going fishing, okay? Unlike Andy going out just to go fishing to catch fish, it sounds kind of innocent, but it goes much deeper. Peter's not going on a vacation. He's going back to his old life, what he knew before he knew Jesus. Basically, he's saying, I'm not worthy anymore. I've blown it. I missed God's plan. You know, how many Christians get stuck in this? I know I've been there. When we start to say things like, you know, I used to teach, I used to witness, I used to lead, but after what I've done, I'm just not worthy to do that. So when we look at that, let's look at Matthew chapter 16. Verse 15, so on page 1495, let's go backwards a little bit, and let's look and say, did Jesus have other plans for Peter? So Jesus had come along, and it says, earlier in his ministry, Peter was one of the first ones to recognize that Jesus was the Messiah. Now, verse 15, it says, but what about you, he asked. Who do you say I am? You remember this from our I Am series, okay? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on the rock I will build my church, and the great gates of Hades will not overcome it. So Peter's running away, and God had said, Peter, you're who I'm going to build the church on. So Jesus takes off, and after this, after the resurrection, Jesus comes back and says, look, I am going to go to restore Peter. Now, this was not, so if we look down on the bottom of this map, there's Jerusalem. We go up to the top. There is a Sea of Galilee. This is where Peter went back to, okay? If we look at this, this is about 85 to 105 miles away, depending upon whether you take the line to the left or the line to the right, okay? When you look at that, the line to the left was through Samaria. Most people didn't go that route because it wasn't as safe. The line to the left was where they usually traveled. So Jesus went. Imagine if we left here right now and we walked to Tacoma, okay? That's about, I looked real quick, that's about 84 miles away, or to Salem, which is about 88 miles away. So he walked somewhere between those or further. And so you look at this, you know, Jesus, he crossed mountains, valleys, dust, heat, you know, not because Peter earned it, but because Peter needed it. And that was kind of what he was doing. You know, some of you think maybe you've wandered too far. But you know, the Jesus we serve, he specializes in long journeys. And he's a God who comes looking. And you guys, you know, he would take, and he will take this exact same journey for you. And I think that is just what's so important to remember, because as Jesus gets back to the Sea of Galilee, Peter, he's gone back to fishing all night. You know, just like the story when Jesus first called Peter, he goes back to fishing again. And what does he catch? Nothing, okay? Then Jesus shows up and recreates the calling of Peter in kind of a restoration fashion. And then he has the miracle of fish. Jesus sits down, starts making breakfast, okay? And Jesus didn't begin with, Peter, explain yourself. Instead, he feeds him. Kind of grace before correction, relationship before restoration. Then in John 21, let's go to this one real quick. John 21, on page 1653. So they just got done. Jesus makes this fire, cooks some fish, and says, when they finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He says, yes, Lord. He said, you know I love you. Jesus said, free my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answers, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. He says, take care of my sheep. What's he saying over and over? Dude, if you love me, you're wasting your time out here fishing. Come and do what I called you to do. Third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus says, then dude, feed my sheep. I added the word dude. It wasn't in there. So we look at that. We look at that, and in so many things, as Judas and Peter, it comes back to, both guys failed. One believed his failure was greater than God's grace. One eventually believed that God's grace was greater than failure. Which disciple are we becoming? The greatest tragedy wasn't Judas's betrayal. It was that he never believed Jesus would forgive him. The greatest miracle wasn't Peter's restoration. Is it what Jesus loved him enough to come find him? I want to give a little time for the band to make it back up here as we kind of start wrapping up. And hey, while the band's coming up, I also just want to say, thanks to Nick and Riley for being here for the first time. Guys, it was awesome to have you guys worshiping with us, and so thanks. As we look, it's amazing how God does so many things in full circles, okay? And I learned a word. It's this whole pastoral thing I'm trying to figure out. A Greek word, apokatastasis. How's that? It means full circle restoration in the Greek. And that's what Jesus does here over and over, because he comes back. First of all, we already talked about the rock and how that comes along. But we come back. So his ministry starts off with catching fish. It ends up with him being restored by catching fish. Okay? He denies him 3 times. And Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? Do you love me? Each one restoring each one of those denials. And then what's really interesting, kind of a fun fact, is according to Professor Google, charcoal fire is only used twice in the whole Bible. There's fires, but it's only listed as charcoal fire twice. Once, when Jesus is making breakfast, okay, for them. The other time is when Peter was standing outside and denied him 3 times. Said he was standing at a charcoal fire. So it's just amazing how God uses this over and over to kind of go around. And so when we look at this, we're going to wrap up, and then the band's going to have another song, and then I'll kind of come up and close. But as we wrap up, I just want you to think about this verse. In 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, what does it mean to be in Christ? If you have accepted Jesus, the new creation has come. So it's not just you're forgiven, you're restored. Your slate's clean. You're a new creation. The old is gone, the new is here. And that's what it's all about.
Walking around these halls, I thought that now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands. Great is thy faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is thy faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet.
the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way, and there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again.
Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. You've never failed me yet. I never will forget. You never failed me.
It was an awesome worship. Thanks, guys. You guys, normally if we're kicking off when we're in session for community groups, we kind of have our application questions, okay? And it's kind of what are we going to discuss this week? So these questions, since we're not in our community group time, are a little bit more introspective. It was when I was kind of getting ready for one of our community group sessions, and I told them, I don't know, it was about 6 months ago, I go, hey, I was studying this really cool thing on just looking at Peter and Judas and seeing how much there was. And I said, I don't know, if I ever just an open topic time, maybe I'll talk about that. And so there you go. It still all goes back to our community groups, right? But these are some more introspective questions as we kind of go through the sermon. Where are you? After your greatest failure, where did you run? Okay? After that, what are you continuing to carry? Are you still, like Peter, did you go fishing? Are you still carrying guilt that Jesus has already carried to the cross for you? You don't need to carry that guilt. Have you accepted his forgiveness? Have you accepted his full forgiveness? And most importantly, are you still sitting in the boat? Okay? Has guilt kept you sitting in a boat that Jesus already called you out of? I know, I want you guys to think about that as we kind of move on, but thank you for worshiping with us today. I just want to pray for all of you guys. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, just thank you. Thank you for each person here. God, you died for each and every one of us. Help us accept that forgiveness. Help us accept it without guilt. Help us to move forward with the mission that you have called us to do. Thank you for loving us, no matter how big of screw-ups we are. Amen. Thanks, guys.